Hey everyone, Tony D and little Joan here with a hot take. Oh, lots of hot takes tonight, stuff going on. Does Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, I have some thoughts on that. First up, I have said in the past that if Barack Obama gets the Peace Prize, well, certainly Trump deserves it, and certainly does a lot of other people, quite frankly, because Obama really didn't do anything to get the Nobel Peace Prize. He gave speeches proclaiming that we could have peace, maybe, kinda, sorta. But being the most powerful free man in the free world, he really didn't do too many things to pursue peace in actual policy. You know, besides drone bombing half the planet, one of the major things he did was push for the NATO invasion of Libya, which created a failed state, which currently has the slave trade. And say what you want about Gaddafi, he didn't have a slave market where he openly bought and sold people. So I think that was a net loss in terms of the world and in terms of peace. Now, the Nobel Peace Prize is kind of a crap prize, let's be honest. There really is no metric for measuring peace and what that should be. Like, there's no system for peace points. It's not like the Nobel Prize for mathematics or some sort of science where there's a bit of a more of a measurement. I mean, if you discover something, well, you know, and it's very important, then maybe you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize in that particular science. But, you know, for the Peace Prize, it's, you know, really about how much peace you've brought to the world. But that's sort of the romantic version of what the Peace Prize should be, and perhaps what Alfred Nobel actually intended it for. The reality is it's become just another pawn on the geopolitical stage, which was why they gave it to Obama anyway. They were pretty much trying to draw him and encourage him, hey, you know, do some peaceful stuff. We're giving you this award. He pretty much didn't listen to them. Trump, on the other hand, forged his own path and has plenty of accomplishments in that column. First, he pushed forward the peace process between North and South Korea. Now, do they have total peace? No, but they're much further along than they've ever been since North and South split. They have torn down a good portion of the DMZ, removed landmines and guard towers. They've had soldiers shake hands. In general, it's fairly peaceful now. The South Koreans, as I said in the previous video, didn't buy a huge anti-missile weapon system because they don't feel they need it anymore. You know, there have been visits across the two countries. Now, Kim Jong-un is no choir boy, and he's trying to stay out of, he's trying not to be tried for war crimes. So he can't just sort of stroll over the southern border and say, all right, take over, I'm going to go to the south of France. He needs a deal for him and his guys so they're not killed, which is what he's looking for. And the moment he gives up those nuclear weapons, he loses all his leverage, and he's in big trouble. So he needs at the very least, some sort of signed document promise that he's not going to be tried for crimes against humanity, because they've done some pretty horrific stuff in North Korea. Now, do I think he should get that? Well, you know, it's the choice between potential nuclear war and letting the guy live his life, or you know, the potential for, you know, death and destruction. So maybe it's a good deal. You know, maybe you could say, yeah, you know, we're going to have to let him go. I mean, he'd still be a worldwide pariah. I think it would be weird if anybody like hosted him at a party or anything like that. But, you know, if he just goes and off into a corner to live his life, who cares at this point? If North and South Korea are peaceful, and let me tell you something, even if they have a deal, somebody will kill him. Yeah. It won't matter. 10 years will go by. He'll be living, I don't know, somewhere in South America, enjoying tropical breezes. And, some guy will just come in there and shoot the place up and kill him. Most likely, the moment he lets his guard down, he's done. But so Trump has started that peace process, and it will eventually unify the peninsula. And it won't unify it under North Korea. They're a total S show. The South Koreans have all the money and the economics. The North Koreans can't run anything. Not really. So, and they have all the cool weapons in the South too. So it's not like they're completely defenseless. The next thing Trump did was he signed a peace deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan. That's a done deal. I mean, there's been very little reporting on it. And Tim Pool did a piece, of course, on this today, and he didn't even mention it. But, they've gone back and forth a bunch of times with the Taliban, but they do have a deal in place. They've had a deal a few times and it's gone bad, but, the deal that they currently now have seems to be holding. And in fact, the rumor was that Trump was trying to get all the troops out of Afghanistan before the election, but the generals pushed hard back on him to keep him from doing that. For, the only reason I can think of is mostly they're interested in keeping a foothold there, because the moment you leave Afghanistan, it's going to be impossible to go back, and you're going to need a whole new set of elaborate theater, as the Bush administration did, to get people back into Afghanistan. So, the defense industry wants to keep this going. They want to keep this going, and they got billions of dollars at stake. And Trump, for his part, I think understands that economic end of it. So in some respects, I think he's kind of okay with slowing down the process a bit, because if he can keep doing this at a steady but slow pace, those defense contractors won't just collapse. They'll hopefully start shifting their focus into other related businesses, and slowly but surely just start to realize, well, we got to get out of defense before the whole thing becomes a bust for them. I think that's partly why Trump spent so much money on the military. I think it was a payoff for the defense industry to say, hey, look, you can still make your money. See, we can have peace and you can make your money. At least in the short term, because that's all they really care about. These guys are very myopic in terms of money. They don't think 40 years down the road, 10, not even 10 years down the road. They're thinking next quarter, year end. That's as far as they go. Everything else after that, well, I don't think they really see that much, except in the case of government contracts. Some of those government contracts go way out. But that's two pretty solid things. I mean, the North Korean situation's been going on forever. The Afghanistan war just drags on and on, so he's close to ending that. But then, of course, is the Israeli-UAE deal. Now, this is a huge deal. Trump, assuming it doesn't collapse and all go back to the way it was, Trump will probably be known as the guy who started peace in the Middle East. Because not only do you have the UAE, you also have Kosovo now, which is the big news of today regarding peace. Trump cut a deal with Serbia, Kosovo. It's a big peace economic thing. Partly, the Kosovo and Serbia have no choice but to sign on for this. They're not going to get the millions they need to rebuild their countries and bribe the people they need to bribe. So they're perfectly fine to recognize Israel and start, open diplomatic channels and trade. But the thing is, you've got two Muslim countries now, Kosovo and UAE. That means the dominoes are going to start to fall. Some of these other Muslim countries who are poorer, they're not all that gung-ho about fighting Israel anyway. They can't really fight them. If they see an economic benefit, now they could go, well, these guys are recognizing Israel. Why can't we? let's just call this off and maybe we'll save some money and even make some. So this is a huge step. And I think that process will most likely continue. And Trump will probably be lauded as the guy who brought peace to the Middle East eventually. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. Maybe you're talking 10, 15 years down the road when it's finally finalized. You know, when the last holdout, probably Iran, goes, well, okay. Maybe by that time they'll have a different government. So you have 4 pretty major accomplishments for peace. And there's even a 5th one that I think is going to be on the second term, and that is peace with Russia. Now, Trump seemed to be pushing for that when he entered the office, and, you know, the whole Russian Gate hoax pushed that off the table because, you know, how are you going to make peace with Vladimir Putin when everybody's trying to impeach you for being a Putin puppet or whatever? Yeah, it kind of made it untenable. And I think that was by design. If Trump had made peace with Russia, I mean, it would have been the Russia and the United States divvying up the world. Okay, you want this? Well, we'll take this. All right, you take that. And that would have, you know, that would have solved a whole lot of problems. And we would have probably made out in the process because opening up trade with Russia has a ton of resources. They don't have strip malls. I mean, they have some, but they don't have as many strip malls and, you know, franchises as we do. And we certainly are good at building that kind of stuff. So I think that's a second term thing. And a comprehensive peace plan is definitely something that's going to be on the menu for term 2 of Trump. So does Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, I think so. I mean, I said so in another video. But the Peace Prize itself is crap. I mean, Woodrow Wilson got it, and he got us into World War I, which really was just a precursor to World War II, if you really think about it. I believe Yasser Arafat and Henry Kissinger both got it, and those guys aren't exactly peaceful people. And there's a whole bunch of other people who got the Nobel Peace Prize. So the prize itself really isn't worth anything anymore, in my view. But certainly that this is an acknowledgement, or would be an acknowledgement, that Trump isn't such a bad guy. You know, right now they're trying to smear the guy in Norway, one of the Norwegian politicians in Norway, who nominated Trump. And the reason for this is pretty obvious. They're smearing him as a right-wing lunatic because, you know, anybody who likes Trump obviously is a racist and a right-wing lunatic. Ooh, watch out. I was very disappointed to see Harry Shearer tweet about this because, look, I think Harry Shearer is one of the most talented guys working in Hollywood. You know, voice of Mr. Burns, Waylon Smithers, so many movies. He's in Spinal Tap. He's a, you know, Best in Show and that crowd. You know, the guy is a real talent. But, you know, like a lot of people in Hollywood, and I shouldn't even put Harry in that camp. He has a podcast and he follows political stuff pretty good. But, you know, he tweeted the Wikipedia page of the guy who nominated Trump as if, aha, see what a right-wing lunatic he is? First off, Harry, you know, the Wikipedia entry isn't exactly, you know, accurate all the time. People change it. You don't even know if half that information is 100% correct. Did you check it? Second, you know, there wasn't really much there. I mean, look, they have different problems over in Norway. And you know, Sweden is really having a problem with immigration. I mean, it's bad in Sweden. There are no-go zone areas. They have taken on too many immigrants at once, and they're not integrating. And that's a real problem. It's not racist to acknowledge that. It's not racist to say, you know, too many people from a foreign country with a different culture, you know, they come into your country, they can't speak the language, they don't integrate, they can't get work, you're going to have trouble. You always have had that. with immigrants. There's always going to be an element that's criminal. And, if you insist on turning parts of Sweden or Norway into, the Middle East, that's going to be a real problem for the people who've lived there for hundreds of years. So, this guy is a politician who is the result, just like Trump is, of those policies, those failed policies of letting too many immigrants in your country at once and not having them properly integrated. If you come to America, you become American. I mean, immigrants have been doing that for 200 years, and they're perfectly proud to do that. They love doing that. It's the same. It should be the same in other countries as well. You don't move to another country and say, hey, I got my own culture. Leave me alone. Well, why'd you come? Why don't you stay in your own damn country? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You move to another country to become a part of it. I'm not going to, if I move to Brazil, I'm not going to say, hey, I'm an American. You should acknowledge that. I'm going to start speaking Portuguese. I'm going to start going to Carnival and, having a good time and try to integrate with the society. I'll still be American, I guess, unless I become a citizen there. If I become a citizen, then I want to be Brazilian. So it's, you're trying to rake the guy over the coals for his Wikipedia entry. Oh, look at this guy. He's a right-wing lunatic. He nominated Trump. You're just playing a game. I mean, and you're ignoring the question. Does Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize or not? Has he have real accomplishment or not? Truth is, he does, regardless of who nominated him. Doesn't even matter who nominated him. And at the end of the day, this prize is pretty worthless. But if Obama's going to get it, and you're going to give it to him and not give it to Trump, well, understand how that looks. It looks bad. It's yet another thing that people on the left side of politics are using to destroy their own credibility. And it's sad to see Harry sort of throw out a Wikipedia entry. It feels lazy. I think he's smarter than that. I think he can give us a link that's more of a book or, something more in depth. It just feels like a bit of a smear to me. But, what do you expect from Mr. Burns? So anyhow, yeah. Does Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Of course he does. But is he going to get it? No. Not from that committee. And those guys are just a bunch of globalists who are going to, that's why they gave it to Obama. He seemed like he was in on the program. Well, let's be globalists now. And, it's not about America. It's about the world and how we're going to run everything like the European Union. So I'm not touting that there's some new world order or anything or any conspiracy theory. This is just the natural flow of events. You've got people who are rich and powerful. They want to be more rich and powerful. If you run some countries, look at Macron. Okay, Macron is like touting like, oh, I'm not a Frenchman. I am a European. The guy wants to be in that groove. He wants Europe to be united so he can move up the chain. Well, I ran France. Now I can run the European Union. Why not? It's a step up. You're running more. You're getting more power, more money, more prestige. It's not a conspiracy theory to say that. It's just simple logic. Anyhow, Trump's not going to get the prize. So it is what it is. But I applaud Trump. He might not get the prize this year, but he might get the prize a few years from now because if things go along on this path, they might just have to give it to him. They might be finally forced to admit that the guy knows what he's doing sometimes.